Hello, world! I'm Chris Pirillo, and you're watching another edition of the LockerGnome Daily Report, or TLDR for short. Your daily dose of geek news, reviews, and answers that you can use like an answer to the question, is this live? Yes, it's live every weekday. And if you're not watching, you're probably listening to this, as it's also a podcast that you can listen to. I've thought about, and feel free to let me know what you think, doing a separate type of media for the podcast, not just pushing TLDR into a podcast, because I tend to do TLDR as though it was a video, and it is a video, but some people want to listen to what it is that I'm saying, not just see what it is that I'm saying. And there are days that I like to talk about certain topics more than others, and it's usually dictated by the day's news. And I will let you know this. One, I think the screen brightness on my tablet is a bit too high, so let me go ahead and dim that a bit. And two, I don't think there were a lot of interesting things to talk about today. I mean, a lot of good things to talk about, but in terms of what I might fill TLDR with, some days are better news days than others. And TLDR is more like, what's the zeitgeist? What's happening today? What can we talk about today at some amount of length to live in the moment? TLDR tends to be not worth very much the day after it's produced. Hell, some people got upset because I was quote-unquote late with my Surface Pro 3 review, or quote-unquote late with my iPad Air 2 review. And, the way I look at it is, well, maybe other people were too quick. I mean, so many reviews get turned around so rapidly, people don't really have a chance to use them. Yeah, they use them, but it's more like a knee-jerk reaction more than it is a full-on review. And to me, a good review is coming from someone who's actually used the product. They're not just looking at it. They're not just, quick, do something, the dozy-doze. I mean, they're actually using the product. They can speak much more intelligently to its value. They could speak more intelligently to not just its feature set, but specifically give an informed opinion. And I think there's something to be said about those who do take their time in not rushing through a review just to get it published, being out there first. With news, however, sometimes that's a somewhat different story. What's today's news may not be tomorrow's news. But I have a feeling that at least one of the stories I wanted to talk about today is something that people are going to be mentioning to me probably up until the point and even beyond the point when it's actually released. I'm very happy that so many of you had tagged me on this story. It's a video that was published to YouTube. I'll put a link for you in the video description. Even though we do not know what these sets are going to look like, we do know that the LEGO Group, courtesy of LEGO Ideas, a fan's idea of two different projects, they're going to be producing two sets that are incredibly geeky. A Doctor Who and his companions, they're going to get their own set, which is likely going to be very, very minifigure heavy. I'm a fan of that. I'm hoping that Tennant is in there, otherwise I will be very disappointed in the set. So we're getting Doctor Who officially with LEGO. Now, I had to explain to a few people, I didn't realize, this is strange for some people, but LEGO owns LEGO. They have the LEGO Group, but they don't own the right to how those blocks interlock. So there are companies who produce, at a varying degree of quality, Lego-esque products or Lego-compatible bricks, but they're not Lego, or they're not from Lego, they're not Lego bricks. So some people were surprised. I'm like, I thought Doctor Who had, Lego stuff. No. Lego did not have the license. The Lego Group did not have the license to produce Doctor Who sets. They've had, I guess, for a while, I can't remember, because I haven't collected any of these figurines to this point. They've had certain things where you can build Doctor Who scenes with figures and bricks, but it's not that I'm a purist. It's just that in the entire world, and it's just because I haven't had much experience with Connects, much experience with Mega Blocks, much experience with any of these Lego compatible sets. Even though I happen to be a fan of obviously the Transformers, GI Joe, SpongeBob SquarePants. I mean these characters and these worlds I might be a fan of. SpongeBob, by the way, I mean I guess he's in Mega Blocks, but he did have a series of Lego sets as well. I'm speaking of him as if he was a real person. He's not. He's a character. So some people were shocked to learn that LEGO had not produced a Doctor Who set. They had not. I have a feeling that it's going to be a huge home run, huge, because the Doctor Who fandom is gigantic, and of course Lego fandom is equally as gigantic. I think people have been waiting for something like this for quite some time. This, 2015 may very well be a good year for being a Lego fan, because we've got now Doctor Who coming out. The other set that they're going to be producing is Wall-E. There's also suggestion that on the slate for the next series of ideas, the only one that I thought was compelling that the Lego group now gets to vote on is there's going to be a potential of a Goonies set. Potential. And I think there's a great possibility that the Goonies set will happen out of the other ones, if only because the Ghostbusters set, straight out of the 80s, pop culture, and the Back to the Future set, straight out of the 80s, popular culture, they were huge hits, so I would expect that the Goonies would be equally as huge as a set, and of course I'd get it. Of course they'd also have to produce all the Goonies as minifigures, otherwise I will feel slighted. So we're also going to be seeing this year Wall-E. One of the animators on Wall-E actually crafted this Lego model, and then he had submitted it to ideas, and it's not going to be a minifigure that I know of. It'd be cool if it was. I'm surprised it isn't yet, but I don't think Wall-E ever had any Lego sets, even though Disney's gone and made sets around movies and shows and characters before, even Duplo stuff, like with the classic Disney characters like Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and so on. It's going to be like a scale, like a model of Wall-E. I don't know if I'm going to get it, if only because as much as I liked Wall-E as a movie, as a show, I tend to steer towards the ones that come with minifigures, because I collect the minifigures. So that's coming out, and of course we know Scooby-Doo is going to be released here, I believe, in the summer. A lot of good things coming down the pike if you happen to be, your fandom, crosses over into the world of Lego. Lego's got something for everybody. That's what I think. That's what I feel. And I wasn't even a huge Scooby-Doo fan, but I'm excited for it. Because, I do know of Scooby-Doo, and I love the world of Lego. And if it gives me a chance to, have more fun, well, who am I to argue? If your day is not full of a little bit of fun, you're probably doing something wrong. Find something that brings a little fun to your life. At least I hope you do. So why am I talking this long about that topic? Well, number one, because it's important to me. And if it's important to me, I want to share it with you. And number two, really, there's not a lot else out there that I found that I thought would be interesting for this audience, interesting for me, or at least be able to talk about at length, and possibly, share happiness together. But I could be wrong. Maybe there's a story on my radar that you wanted me to talk more about. Just let me know, which I'm sure you're going to do anyway. Today, if you didn't watch LockerGnome, our handle at LockerGnome on Twitter, of course you can subscribe on LockerGnome.com. We're celebrating George A. Romero Zombie Day, so we found a whole bunch of awesome zombie products, including zombie jerky. I didn't know this. So I'm going to actually get zombie jerky. I'm going to try zombie jerky. It's going to be a CPU episode, I think. I'll try that. I'll give it a shot. There's the zombie mug people liked, a couple of zombie t-shirts. Some people just love zombies. There's like a zombie bottle holder. It looks like a zombie coming out of the ground holding onto like a wine bottle. It's kind of neat. If you like zombies, there's a whole bunch of zombies collectibles for you. I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan. There's some Lego zombies. I'm a fan of those. What were you doing, Dad?
Yesterday's tasted like.
Oh yeah, that biltong was not fun tong at all. That was bad tong, in my opinion. I've had good biltong, and now I can say I've had biltong that wasn't so fun. And I love jerky. We do, however, have 39% off SMS Audio Street by 50 headphones on deals.lockergnome.com. Also, wait, is it by 50 headphones or that's 50, not 50 Cent, right? There's not another. Does he have his own headphones?
Oh, I don't think he does.
I don't know. I'm kind of lost with all the headphones. I'm not an audiophile. I'm not. Do I look like MIDI to you? That's an audiophile. Different kind of audiophile. I loved MIDI files back in the day. Maybe we should use MIDI as a soundtrack for some of our videos. That'd be cool. I loved MIDI. Oh, MIDI. Did anybody else listen to mods? I listened to mods too. If you don't know what a mod is, man, you are too young for the internet. Mammoth Interactive has a 5-hour developer course, free. You want a 5-hour developer course? Yeah, but I'm going to wait until it's 4 hours. I don't have 5 hours. I don't want to learn to be a developer. I want to learn in 4 hours. Can I learn to be a developer in 4? No! 5 hours, and it's free. So if you have 5 hours to spare and no money in your pocket, that's the deal for you. Deals.lockergnome.com. Thanks to Mammoth Interactive. Zero Lemon has the 20,000 hour, I'm sorry, not 20,000 hour, milliamp hour solar charge external battery, 16% off at deals.lockergnome.com. There was a suggestion that Star Wars is set to explode, and I believe that's the case. And some people think I talk about it too much. Honestly, I'm the kind of person who I believe that I'm not talking about it enough, because I'm telling you, it is going to explode. Not just with the new movies and the new fans that haven't had a new movie, that they're just growing up, and Disney is going, whole hog. I mean, they're building a Star Wars theme park. You're going to have an explosion of toys. You're going to have an explosion of stories. You're going to have an explosion of all this stuff. So for anybody who thinks I'm going to slow down in terms of talking about Star Wars, the answer is no. It's not going to happen. But of course, I'll talk about other topics that I think are relevant for the day too. I think it's a part of being a geek. But I'm telling you, I think Star Wars is about to hit a huge rejuvenation in terms of a fan base. Where the park will likely, I think they're going to have multiple parks, most likely around Walt Disney World in Florida, and then of course in Anaheim around Disneyland. So yeah, of course, yeah, I'd be bowled over to go there. I'm not sure if I have many plans for Star Wars Celebration though, even though that's kind of the Star Wars event. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it yet. We'll see what happens though. I'm kind of hoping I will be able to make it. But I have, at this point in time, no immediate plans on going to Star Wars Celebration. Though it would be a lot of fun. I would love to be able to go, and this would be, I think, one of the prime years to go. So that was another bit of news that floated across my radar. Another interesting factoid: there's a guy who, and I didn't even realize this was a mistake. This one guy has submitted, one of the top Wikipedia editors or contributors of all time. He has corrected thousands upon thousands of articles of specifically one grammatical mistake. You shouldn't say comprised of. Apparently, saying comprised of is a grammatical mistake. I didn't know that. Composed of, possibly, is okay. But comprised of is not good. To comprise is different from to compose. Composed of paper materials versus comprised of paper materials. There's a difference. I learned something new. This guy is my hero. Like this is like, it's not his job. He does other things, but interesting backstory on this guy. But he can write software, and he figured out how to basically go through manually and change the articles. So if you ever write a Wikipedia article and you've ever seen this person or a random person change one part of that article from comprised of to composed of or an alternative, this is why. You're wrong. So I appreciate that. I like it when, if someone comes in and corrects me when I'm wrong. I don't mind. I really don't. Because there are many things that I get wrong. Trust me. I will be the first to admit, and I've said this before, this is nothing new. I'm wrong more frequently than I'm right. There's a lot more that I don't know than I do know, and I've made way more mistakes than I have seen successes in my life. I will be the first to admit. So don't think that you're, doing anybody a favor by saying that I don't know everything. Because I was the first to admit it, and you will no doubt be the last. Anyway, so I thought that was fascinating, a backstory about, the human editors on Wikipedia. It's kind of nice to know this guy. I mean, he's got a heart. And he's obviously a passion for just, informing the world that you're doing it wrong.
Well, you learn more when you're wrong.
Yeah, you do. When you keep, you keep going forward, you think you're right until someone corrects you. This is why, if I see something that's not what it should be or what I believe it should be, I'm going to say something. Because if I don't say something, what's going to happen? Potentially bad things. I'm not saying bad things are going to happen if you keep using comprised of instead of composed of. But it's one example of where sometimes if you do it the right way, you can correct someone and you say, well, do it this way, and here's why. Give them a little bit of context potentially. And I think some people, because in the article, which was worth reading, I know this is TLDR, too long didn't read. It was absolutely worth reading. I think I was about the only person, and maybe my brothers and I were the only people who actually liked the movie Howard the Duck. Loved that movie. But it was campy, and we were kids, and it was fun. We didn't know anything about comic books. We didn't have comic books growing up. Although after today's broadcast, my dad and I are going to head off to one of the comic book stores, because Star Wars 002 from Marvel is out. It's released. I've got a subscription now, but it hasn't come in, so I want to get that. I want to be able to read it. Might even do a review on 002 for everybody. Might make a good CPU episode. But anyway, there was an article on Dorkly, which is one of my favorite websites, talking about 5 truly messed up facts about Howard the Duck, the Howard the Duck movie, which was, by the way, produced by George Lucas. One of the reasons I might have liked it as well, because I'm a fan of Star Wars. It was Marvel's first theatrical release since the 1940s, and the first Marvel feature film, period. Howard the Duck. And a lot of people didn't like it. I could still watch it this day and still probably enjoy it. I liked that movie. That was my kind of campy. And mind you, no context. I did not read any of the Howard the Duck comic. I didn't even know it was a comic book. I didn't know. Didn't know it was from Marvel. I just knew it was a movie. It was fun. If I watched it as an adult, I might have different feelings about it. But, spoiler alert, watching to the end of Guardians of the Galaxy, there's Howard the Duck. Now, I didn't make that leap. There was a duck at the end of the movie with the Collector. Like, I think he was sipping on a martini or something like that. Voiced by Seth Green. And it was Howard the Duck. I had no idea. Fascinating. And the theatrical release of Howard the Duck lined up some odd years, 30, however many odd years later, to the date of the release of Guardians of the Galaxy. So they were released on the same date. Howard the Duck's in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie at the very end. I don't know. See, that's a movie. We've been talking about reboots lately, or at least I have, because it's a fascinating topic for me. Howard the Duck, I think, because of how it was received, would be ripe for a reboot if it was done right. It was originally written to be an animated feature, not necessarily the movie the way it was produced. In fact, it cost more money. I love learning this stuff. It cost more money, not much, but it cost more to produce Howard the Duck than it did Return of the Jedi. Can you believe that?
That's pretty amazing.
And what else I learned? This is where I just love eating this kind of knowledge up, because then I learn it. I love this stuff. Not only did it cost more money than Return of the Jedi, it didn't do very well in theaters. Lucas was looking for a way to spin off his software arm, the part of what he was building with Lucasfilm and everything after Jedi, because not much going on. He wasn't making much money because the movies were done. He sold the software part of what he was building to a buyer. Do you know who that buyer was, and do you know what that company became? The buyer was Steve Jobs, and that company became Pixar. So as much as you might have hated Howard the Duck, for everything that we've had in the world of Pixar, we have Howard the Duck to blame. Unbelievable. You should see my dad's face. It was the same. I had the same face when I'm reading. I'm like, what? Now that is journalism. That is the kind of article I love reading. I had no idea. Am I the only one who liked Howard the Duck? My brothers and I loved it. I mean, that was one of those movies that we would rent over and over and over again. In a day and age where it cost you $1 or $2 to rent a movie on VHS tape that you had to rewind before returning to the store. Or, on HBO or whatever's playing on cable if we had a subscription at that point. But we liked the movie. I got to send this article to my brothers because I think they'll get a kick out of it. I couldn't believe it. The article's a treasure trove of information. So you have to appreciate Howard the Duck at a completely different level, if only because of the Pixar story. Wow. That, to me, that is news. That's the kind of stuff I like to read about. You learn something new. Everything else I read about, I'm like, yeah, I knew that. Yeah, that's interesting, but we'll see where it goes. Elsewhere in the headlines, there's been a lot of discussion around Title II, net neutrality, rules for wired and wireless networks. It's been interesting how the FCC chairman, Tom Wheeler, has progressed and how they're going to ensure net neutrality, which I've been a huge proponent for quite some time. And just to explain this is a topic that I would consider under the umbrella of having been beaten to death, because I've talked about it so often that talking about it again just makes it feel like I'm just talking about the same things over and over again, which I know some people accuse me of anyway. Hello, can I get through a day without talking about, Star Wars? No, I can't. But it tends to be different stuff. So it's interesting because it gives me hope for where we're going in the future in terms of broadband. And I've said it before, I believe there's going to come a time where it's just going to be there. You don't even think about it. You won't even necessarily have to have a quote unquote account with authentication and what have you. It's just going to be like air. It's just going to be there. And I think that's the way it's going to be. I think restricting it is stemming the tide. And to know that net neutrality is still a possibility, we were worried there for a while, it gives me hope. And the idea of net neutrality, because believe you me, if you heard about it and you understand it, it's very simple. You want the net to be neutral. You don't necessarily, as consumers, you don't necessarily want one player to get a bigger pipe, so to speak, because the internet, or a bigger tube. The internet's a series of tubes. Anybody remember that meme? you don't want one company to be treated differently than another company because they have more money to spend, because unfortunately that shuts out so much potential. In much the same way, like a startup company, you want everybody to be on equal footing, and the internet is one of those things that, whether you consider it a possibility or a potential to be like a public utility, I think it goes beyond that. I think it's a basic necessity. It to me, it's as crucial, maybe not as critical to life, but in terms of a quality of life and to actually being able to function as a social human being. We've got Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we've joked about this before, and I've even seen other people do the same thing. We've got, you got your food, shelter, you've got your water, you've got your basics, your needs in order to survive as a human being. I think internet access is a part of that because of how transformative access to knowledge can be. So to strip away someone's ability to get connected, I think is very, very dangerous. There was an amazing interview that The Verge did recently with Bill Gates, who, I've said this before as well, I'm not going to pull it. I'll pull it out. I think in the annals of history, Bill Gates is going to be more well known for the things he's done after Microsoft than anything he did at Microsoft. So there, I said it, and that's what he was talking to. And it was a wonderful interview with fantastic insights at how the Gates Foundation is basically bringing an equilibrium to parts of the world where an equilibrium just doesn't exist. And part of that is not just, transforming health, transforming access to knowledge. And to me, that access to knowledge is critical. Of course, there's the other problem where there are people out there, likely some people who've watched this video and tuned out minutes ago, who don't understand that, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make it think, right? Just because you have access to the knowledge doesn't mean that you're exercising your ability to think through it. And that's the other component that I think is missing. I haven't said this before, but I had thought about, as I was driving around, I remember in a vlog recently, for some reason, Inspector Gadget, the theme song popped in my head. Inspector Gadget. Next time, Gadget. Next time. Watch that. Hang on. I shouldn't do that. And I remember the cat. I remember he had a cat. The enemy had a cat. Couldn't remember the enemy's name. I didn't remember much about the cartoon, apparently. But I remember watching it before heading off to school. It was something I enjoyed. But one of the characters, Penny, had a book. It was an electronic book that she'd open up and she'd get anything. And I thought about that. I'm like, you know what that is? That's this. We live in a world of Inspector Gadget. And you don't even realize... You don't realize what you have until you've lost it, and you don't appreciate what you have until you understand what it was like before we had it. Kids these days, in my day, we used to have to tune into cartoons, and if we missed them, we missed them, and that was it. We couldn't call the television company and complain. If we wanted to complain to somebody, we had to do it to their face or over the phone. And then they would star 6-9 us. My day, kids these days. I'm not going to say that a lot of people abuse technology, but I think a lot of people, and I myself included, I think we abuse the privilege of access to a world knowledge, a world consciousness, which is, where social is. And I think that is abused by some people, but it's precious. And it's potentially transformative. That's where I think technology can change lives. I don't care. You're going to ask me about the spec. I don't care how fast. Do I care if I get a faster one? Sure, but that's not what makes it interesting. What makes it interesting to me is what this can do. How this can transform so many things. How it's going to get better over time, and how, in tow, the world is going to get better. Because if the world does not get better as technology gets better, what's the point? If the world does not advance, if our consciousness, our global consciousness, if society does not advance because of advancements in technology, what's the point? There is no point. It's frippery, but it's not. Commerce is tied into it. Our social lives are tied into it. Access to information tied into it. And with information, you can build knowledge. And then you've got wisdom right there at your fingertips. And so many people just let it disappear. Why? Because they're afraid of spending 5 minutes to learn something that they might be better off learning. I don't know why people decide to ignore this power. I don't know why people choose willingly to abuse this power. But it's beautiful, and that's why I like technology. That's why I love technology for how it transforms. I'm not excited about 3D printing because I ordered a 3D printed statue of a Buddha with a Darth Vader head on it in black and gold and silver from a guy who apparently remembers me all the way back from Tech TV. Wait till those come in. He's on Etsy. I'm excited about that because of, I got a collectible. It's one this guy made it, and of course it could be replicated easily, but he made it, and I didn't have the ability to make it at home. I'm excited for what 3D printing is, how it's transforming health, and how it's transforming perceived shortcomings, and how it's transforming our lives. That's the power of technology. That's the beauty of technology. Those are fascinating topics because they're tied into stories. Is the spec sheet of a tablet the story? I don't care. I don't care. Now, is an application on that tablet a story? I think so. I found out about an app today that I gotta find my phone here because I don't think I have it on my tablet. Give me a second. Found out about it today, and I think this is nationwide here in America. It is called HD Scores. How clean is it? And what this will do is allow you to get the rating or how clean the restaurant you're about to go into, how clean it is. And so you can get an idea before you go into a restaurant. Now, this is one of the reasons I loved living in California for a while, because before you walked into a restaurant, you could get like it would say A, B, or C, and you get an idea of how clean the restaurant was. You'd want to go into an A establishment, that way you knew the health inspector was good. A B, you're kind of taking your chances, but it generally would be okay. And then C, yeah, there's something pretty bad that happened there. So I appreciated just at a glance, just being able to see it, because forget the ratings, you want to know, right? So that's an app that to me is transformative because it puts wisdom into your hands right there, distills it down. It's, again, HD Choices, I think is what it's called again. I got to get out of the app. HD Scores, sorry. HD Scores. It's on iOS. I don't know if it's available for Android. That's why apps get me more excited, because it's the same phone, but suddenly it becomes radically different. Could I get the same information on the web? Sure, but it may take you a half hour to get to the data and distill it down to the point where you're done and you're no longer hungry or you've moved on to the next restaurant. It's transformative, man. Love apps. Oh, I love apps like that. Those I'm keeping it on my phone. Absolutely. I want to know. I'm curious to know the restaurants that I go to. Like, oh my God, I'm never going to eat there again, or I'm going to wait until that score improves. And you know what? That'll make the restaurants more honest. When more people use that app and they discover that their sales are impacted, they're going to get better and you're going to win. Whether or not you use that app. Technology improved your life. That's exciting to me. Everything else it's interesting, but it's not. That app gets me more excited than the phone it runs on. Which is like the antithesis, I know, of every other geek or nerd on YouTube, right? That talks, or anywhere in the realm of technology. But it's whether that makes me different in a bad way, it's just, that's who I am. It's what I get passionate about. It's what I'm interested in. I'm not afraid to say that either. That's where I get excited. God, I had a good title for this video too as I was talking through it. Maybe like the wisdom, or we're living in a world of Inspector Gadget or something like that. I think that needs to be the title, because it was a very, I thought, that was Penny. I think Penny was the name of the character. That was her book. It was so cool because I'm like, man, I wish I could have had that. Wouldn't it be awesome to open up a book and have everything at your fingertips? And now we're living the dream. It was a dream. You couldn't have told me. You couldn't have told me. Because I wouldn't have believed it. I would have wanted it to happen, but it was so far into the future. Man, wouldn't it be cool? It is cool, and it's there. It's prevalent. Who cares what platform you're running on? I don't care. Find one that fits you. I'd find one that definitely works and works well. I've got my choice. You're going to have your choice, but still, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. That's why, to me, Android tablets are the same thing as iOS devices or iPads. Yep, you heard me say it. As far as I'm concerned, in the grand scheme of things, as far as what people use tablets for, iOS is pretty much the same thing as Android. For the most part. The nuances are absolutely different, for sure. Because Google takes a different approach to the marketplace as Apple does. But someone's going to check their email. Does it matter if they use the Gmail app on Android or the Gmail app on iOS? And the answer is no. Some people prefer one over the other. It's good to have competition. But, as far as most people are concerned, they're the same. And you know what? They're not wrong. Because they are the same. It's a web browser. It's Chrome on Android or iOS. Which one do you want? It's choice. That's why I don't like these arguments. They're always pointless to me. I just kind of like, oh, silly human. Do you not really understand? And most people don't. Because they believe that the world needs to operate like the way they need it to operate, and it just doesn't work that way. Oh, trust me, there are times that I wish, more of the world like Star Wars, but I know it's not going to happen. I will convince, Cassie Lowe, I got to convert you. You'll be more of a Star Wars fan than a Trekkie or a Trekker. No, I don't think I can do that. You can't. It's too much. I know. I'm being facetious, Dad. I'm being facetious, Cassie.
You tell Kathy I'm a Trekker.
Yeah. Are you a Trekker or a Trekkie? I think people got really upset about that for a while.
Is it a Trekkie or Trekker? I like Star Trek. How's that?
Exactly. I'm a Star Trek fan. I'm a fan of many parts of Star Trek, but it's not my fandom, my choice of fandom. So anyway, for a slow news day, I certainly did go kind of deep. I hope everybody. But that's what happens. I only have one or two stories to go on. That's what I'm going to go with. People like hearing me talk. That's an assumption. Some guy complained. It was a quote unquote complaint. What you do is someone could sit in front of a computer and a webcam and do what you do. You're lazy. Blah, blah. I don't know why he felt the need to tell me this. I'm like, yes, someone could sit in front of a computer and a webcam. That's not why they tune in. I'd assume you'd tune in because you care about what it is that I have to say. And so thank you for caring enough for what I have to say. Have to say? Have to say. Have said. Have will said. So I'm going future tense as well. Is this too tense for you? Do I need to break the tension? We will. Thank you. I do appreciate you. I do love you. I've got to move on to the patron hangout now. Thank you if you are a patron of mine, Super Nomi. If you're all one of my Nomis. You all are. That I think is going to be the reboot of the LockerGnome app. It's going to be called Nomies. Anybody's going to be able to get it for free. And we're going to have most of our community living inside of the app. It's going to be the best way to connect with all the stuff we're doing for you. I think websites, as far as communities are concerned, are kind of there and gone because everybody's got this computer on them 99% of the time, and everything's in an app. I'm excited about that. Still waiting to find out when it's going to get rebooted, though. So keep tuning in. I really appreciate all the time you've spent with me. But at this point, I'm going to leave you to your own devices.